Hey there, fellow entrepreneurs. I'm Sue, and you've just stepped into Entrepreneurs Gone Wild. Every week, I'll introduce you to a friend of mine, a remarkable entrepreneur who's not just changing the world, but also harnessing a secret weapon, time outdoors. Together, we'll dive into their journey, unpack invaluable business advice, and discover why embracing the wild is not just good for the soul, but also a goldmine for inspiration and innovation. Ready to uncover the secret that's boosting bottom lines and fueling joy? Hit subscribe and join us in the wild. Welcome back to the show. It's been a little while, but we're back and we're right from the barn. So this is kind of a different setup for the Entrepreneurs Gone Wild podcast, but I'm very excited to bring to you our very first guest that we're having from Idlewild Woods Retreat Center, and this is Sherry Grigsby. So I'm excited to hear her story. We have not met until today, and this is going to be really cool. She's going to be a neighbor-ish fairly soon, moving up to the Raleigh-Durham area, and she used to live in Johnson City, which is just up the road by about an hour from here. So Sherry, welcome to the show. Would you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is Sherry Grigsby, and I have been an entrepreneur in a few different ways for a little while. It took me a minute to find what it is that I wanted to do, but now I've figured it out. And my mission is really to help women really embody who they are, their bodies, their feminine energies, so they can feel full, so they can go out and live full, healthy lives and go empower other women in the world to do the same. That's really what I am doing in this world, is to help women just be who they are.
That's a big thing. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's a major thing, because I think a lot of, men and women, but I obviously as a woman, I get what that is, the pressures to conform to this or that, or show up like this or that. And really, when we're able to shed all that and just show up as ourselves, that's game changer for sure. So I can't wait to hear about that. But you did mention, prior entrepreneurial things. So I just want to hear, like, before, what was your life like before this whole entrepreneurial bug bit you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, but I never really felt that in my adult years. Didn't really make any connections. My dad owns his own business, heating and air conditioning. His dad owned the business before, doing all sorts of different things, like a meat locker, and had a billiard hall, so many different things, and it morphed and shifted. And my own entrepreneurial journey started, I guess you could say it started when I was a teenager, when I decided to start teaching flute lessons because I play the flute. And so I'm like, you know what, I could make some money doing this. And that was exciting and all good. And then, I get married, had a bunch of kids, and started teaching piano lessons. So stuck with music for a little while. Then I found network marketing. I got into the essential oils, and then later left that alone. And then I got into the skincare and makeup and was more serious about that one for a little while. Then I got into some supplements. You know how it is. If you go down the network marketing tunnel, you're just like, oh, this one, that one, this one. And it took me quite a long time to figure out, I'm like, but this isn't mine. I want something that's mine, that I've put my heart and soul into. I don't want to be just, in someone else's plan doing their thing. I had this deep desire to create something of my own that I could really put my heart into and share and put it out into the world that wasn't just a product. Those products were all great. They served me for the time that they served me. I still use some of them today, and those communities helped me grow. But what really got me going was I went to this event. I actually just came back from the same event on Sunday, so the timing of this is amazing.
Yeah.
I went to an event and I really felt deeply called that I had a bigger purpose than what I was allowing myself to see, that I was put on this earth to do more, that I had something inside of me that needed to be shared, and I wasn't living up to it. And so I was like, I don't know what this is yet, but I want to go down this path and figure it out. And I just knew that with my own experience of the personal development, of seeing how when I started loving me, how when I started caring about me and understanding how powerful I am, which means everybody else is powerful too, because we're all humans, then I wanted to do something with that. So I started going down the path of getting certified in different coaching modalities and something called human interaction technology, which is an NLP-based hypnotherapy, kind kind of certification to be able to help and assist people in getting them to go where they wanted to go in their lives. Then it took a little bit deeper turn. And there was something still missing. I just shared on my Facebook yesterday, actually, that my husband and I, a year ago, were in a really, really shitty place. Can I say that on this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, do I get to say that word? And we were in a really bad place. And we're like, oh my goodness, we have all these tools, all these communication things. Like, we've done all this work. He's certified in the same things I am. Like, we've been down this journey together. He's not an entrepreneur currently. He wants to start something. He works for a corporation now. But we've had all these tools and we're like, why can't we make this work? And then I started learning more about masculine and feminine energy and realized how much I was showing up in the masculine, how controlling I was, how much I was just forcing things to happen in my life. And once I started to shift and, like, I don't want to say like take a back seat, but let go of the control and start allowing myself to just be who I am, to embrace my sexuality, to embrace who I am as a woman and heal my hurts and within my body, things shifted in a major way in our relationship. And I was like, I got it. It's not just the mindset coaching that I want to do. It's not just like, oh yeah, rah, life coaching, make people's lives better. I was like, no, not enough people know this part. And so what I've done now is I've taken all the things I learned from way back when, all the certification things of helping people get into their subconscious minds with the frame of helping women really own their right to sexuality and be who they are. That's the mission that I'm on now. That's what I'm doing.
Wow. That's amazing. That's fantastic. So I know, a lot of the women that I know that are business owners or entrepreneurs, we have that same thing, like I always used to say, I'm like a non, like basically a dude, but not, like,
yeah.
Like, I've joked about being out here. I forget how to girl, it's like, it's a huge thing because there's so much of that drivenness, so much of that masculine energy that's feels like it's a prerequisite for being able to survive as a business owner. You're having to absolutely take action, be the initiator, be the, all this kind of stuff. And that can have a really big impact. Are you finding that you're serving, a lot of entrepreneur women, or are they just, is that mostly your client base, that type, or?
Yeah, I get a mix. Because this plays into everyone, no matter if you have a business or not. We have a lot of commonalities just in society as women, because there has been this push that in order to succeed in the world, we need to be men, which is totally false. Yeah. But there are a lot of people who are in business. A lot of women in business are really feeling the burnout that comes from being driven by that masculine energy. And they're like, I don't understand, like, why my relationships are harder than they need to be, or why I'm like coming up against walls and they don't understand it because they haven't really nourished their feminine energy. And it's not that we can't spend time in the masculine. It's absolutely necessary, because men and women both have masculine and feminine energy. It's not just like I have one and you have another, like we all have it and it's fluid. Yeah. And what I do is I help women learn how to shift from the masculine energy, which is necessary as a business owner. Like you said, like it is purpose driven. You're going to go out and get shit done. And how do you shift that into coming back to yourself, connecting with you and nourishing that so that you don't feel the burnout? You don't have to do it all from this forceful place. And when you can start to learn to shift into the feminine energy and become more magnetic, things will come to you, and it takes a whole lot less force to let things happen, because you're letting things happen instead of trying to make them happen. And it's so much easier and it feels so much better as a woman.
Oh, is fascinating. So I've been in the past, I was in Trevor Blake's transformation course and the guild that he has. And he talks a lot about this. And he said it almost goes even like on a grander scale. There's like this cyclical thing where it's been masculine energy for so long. And he said, there is definitely a shift. It's going into feminine energy. And he said that the masculine is much more like straight line. like gonna go do, gonna take that hill,
Yep.
And he said women, feminine energy, so not even women, misspoken there, but feminine energy, it was more like a swirling, and he said I think he was saying something like, along with like danger levels, it's like the feminine is actually much more powerful and like kill, like, I mean, it was
Absolutely.
not like hunt and kill, but it was just like, like take no prisoners. It was very interesting. I didn't fully get what he was talking about, but I was like, planted a seed, like, this is very interesting for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's wild. Can you share, like, what was the moment that, like, an aha where you shifted into, all right, this is, like you said, you're kind of in a shitty place with your husband at that one point. Was there something that you're like, a moment that you remember, you're like, whoop, there was the pivot?
Yeah. I had been following a woman for years, since about like 2020. I listened to her on a podcast, and she had this program that was all like, it's all based around like sexual intimacy, and like ancient practices within sexual intimacy. And I was very intimidated the first time I read anything about her, listened to her, because I was like, whoa, that's not for me. But when we got to the place where we were in our really shitty relationship, like, I'd been receiving her emails for the past like 3 years before we got to that point. And her course was coming up for couples. And I was like, there's got to be something in here. Like, we played it out because we know how we work. Like, we do this thing where we can see the end. And we're like, okay, where is this going to get us? If we go down the road of counseling, like, we know where that ends. We've tried that before. And we're like, okay, it's not working to try to do it on our own. And so this opportunity to take this course came up, and we played it out. We're like, okay, well, this is actually cheaper than counseling anyway. And it's going to get us probably a better result. And if anything is going to work, we just knew, we're like, if this can't work, then we're just fucked. Like, then it's got to be this. Like, this is the one that's got to make the difference. And so we signed up for that. And learned just so many practices that were like, oh my gosh, we didn't realize this was missing. Like, our polarity was off. Like, I was in the masculine role, he was in the feminine role. Like, I was leading us, I was making all the decisions, and I had a really strong resistance. Like, I was like guns a-blazing. I wanted things to get better, but like, it took a lot for me to take a step back and let go of that control to allow him to come in and lead us.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean,
yeah,
that's a major thing. I have a friend who, he had posted something about just like, here's why, like, so men, to be driven by their sexuality, by this, the conquering, and not in a violent way necessarily, right, but the pursuit, the hunt, all that kind of thing. And he was saying, you go to the gym and you see all these women and they're like barely clothed or anything. He said that's dimming your desire, because it looks like it's so easy, like you can see that with no effort whatsoever, right? And so instead of being able to step into that role, and fulfill, and have that drive, and fulfill it like that, it was very interesting. This is a whole new area for me to even look at. But so how did this change? You were already doing coaching, right? And so how did this change your practice? And was that scary, or like, all right, is there gonna, there's a million life coaches, all right, this is different, is this gonna work, is this gonna be the end of it? Like, what did that feel like, making that shift for you professionally?
Yeah, it actually felt so good, because it felt so much more in alignment with my deeper calling. I just was not feeling like, I had a really hard time getting my message across. Like, I had worked with people, I had helped them, and there's still a part of me that's like, this isn't it. And so I didn't feel fully aligned with just like the life coaching, with the mindset, the confidence, all those things matter. And I still teach a lot of the same things that I always have, but with the feminine energy stuff, like realizing like, oh my goodness, this is what's been missing. And as I've stepped into it, I've realized just how important it is for other women to have it. So for me, it just felt like so aligning. There was a part that was a little bit scary, because it is something that people are not talking about very much. And if they are talking about it, there's a lot of interesting ideas around it. I find that a lot of coaches that are talking about masculine and feminine energy are doing it from the relationship space or from the sex space. They're not really doing it from the individual space. And so that's how I'm different too, is that I don't care whether you're in pursuit of a relationship, if you're in one, if you're not in one, like, let's work on helping you become the most radiant, confident woman you can be within your feminine energy. And then that's going to help you and empower you to go after whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's relationship, business, family, being a good human on this earth.
Nothing wrong with that. We could probably use some more of that.
Exactly.
All right. And then from the time you started your coaching practice on, were there some challenges that you encountered? I'd love to hear a couple of those and how you got through those.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things that comes up when I think of that is I had a lot of self-doubt of wondering, is this what, like, am I really qualified? Because especially because I had this relationship stuff going on in the background. Like, it didn't just like someday get bad for us. Like, it had been bad for a while. There was a lot of like secrets that were being kept that I didn't know about, and that I wasn't being honest with everything, and he wasn't being honest with everything. And so it didn't just get there. And so I think that weighed on me a lot, and it was showing up in how I was going about business. And I felt a lot of, people say imposter syndrome. I don't really love labels. I'm not the kind of person that likes to take labels on unless they serve me. Like, if it serves me and it helps me to become better in the direction that I want to be, then I'll take the label. So I'm not really one that's like, oh yes, imposter syndrome. But I will say there was a level of confidence that I wasn't able to step into fully. And I do think that this piece was missing before. So I wasn't really as successful as I wanted to be. I couldn't really put my message out there all the way. Because it's like I didn't believe that I really had something as necessary as sharing. Because like you said, like, life coaches are a dime a dozen. Like, they are literally all over. There are people getting life coach certifications all the time. They're like, oh, I want to help you. Like, let's rah make your life work. And that's not what I'm in the business of. Like, I am in the business of empowering women so that they don't need to be with me forever. And they don't need to stick around forever, because I want you to be able to be empowered and then go out and live your life and do the next thing for you.
Yeah. So when they show up, is there a typical pain point that they're like, oh gosh, Sherry, here's the thing. Like, why are they choosing? Like, do they understand what the problem, how problem aware and solution aware, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Like, who are they coming to you going,
Yeah, it varies, depending on what is their relationship to understanding anything about the masculine feminine energy. Some just know that they feel off. Some know that they just aren't as connected to their bodies as they'd like to be. Some really understand that, like, they're having challenges that they haven't figured out yet. One thing that I think is very common that I'm seeing is the disconnect of women to their bodies. We take time in front of a mirror. Most people take time in front of a mirror, brush their teeth, do their makeup, do their hair. What really is happening is you're glancing. You're not really taking time to look at who you are. You're not seeing that reflection as who you truly are, the things that you've gone through in life. And I don't know if you've ever had this moment, if you've like really stopped to look at yourself in the mirror and had this like, how the hell did I get here kind of moment. Like, what happened to me? And I work with a lot of moms. And so this is really common. They just like, they push aside, they go through their routine almost like purposefully not looking. And so it's that moment of like, once they look and they're really realizing like their relationship with themselves is not where they want it to be. Like, they can't even like really look themselves in the eye, in the mirror, without a lot coming up, because they don't love who they are. It's extremely painful. Like, that is the biggest pain point that I see, is that women are so disconnected from who they are, and they tell themselves stories about that. And that's a lot of where the problem lies. Instead of like embracing who they are and seeing themselves as a whole person, they see themselves as parts.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. It is a remarkable thing, thought experiment, whatever, to stand and like gaze into your own eyes in the mirror. That's a thing.
It's vulnerable.
Yeah.
And most people have not allowed themselves to be vulnerable with themselves.
Wow.
And one philosophy I live by is you can only be vulnerable and love other people to the extent of what you will allow yourself to be vulnerable with you and love you.
That makes sense. I mean, it really does. Because if we're able to see, like look and see, then it's a whole other thing. If we're hiding stuff from ourselves, it's very hard to have any sort of intimacy. Like, oh gosh, they're going to see me.
Yes.
Wow. All right. So what does your practice look like? Are you, do you have weekly calls and then you're giving assignments or, and you said hypnotherapy too. Does that work into this or what does it look like?
Yeah, a little bit. So I just launched my program called the Radiant Confident Woman. It's a 12-week program to serve only 8 women at a time. I believe heavily in community. I believe that we should not go through these experiences alone. For me, my experiences of growth, when I've had people that I could bounce things off of and just like go through very similar things and share with, that's been a game changer. So I have a 12-week program that is designed to take you from where you are. We kind of figure out like, where are you collectively as a group and individually? And then we go through this series of like getting to know who you are again, getting to figure out like, what do you even like? What even makes you feel pleasure? Like, who are you? And then we go through a lot of the subconscious beliefs that you've got in your head, like what's going on around that? What are you believing about yourself? We play around in your brain a little bit. And then by the end, you're able to really design and decide who it is you want to be, like how you want to show up as the radiant, confident woman that I believe every woman has inside of her. Like, I truly believe everyone has this bright light of magnetic feminine energy inside, and they've just dimmed it through different life experiences. And so my program is designed to help people get that out. So yeah, it's weekly, and there's a workbook. I don't like the word workbook. I'm still playing with like that. Like, what do we call it? That's a little more fun. So there's assignments, there's integration calls, there's hot seat coaching, so you can just come and like, okay, what's on your mind? What are you working through? And then I have another option within that program of, if you want to take it a step higher, like more access to me through Telegram, that I can do a little bit of either one-on-one or depending on how many people are in that VIP container, kind of more access to work through things in between the weekly calls.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds really powerful. That's great. And how long have you had it? Like, how long has your business looked like this?
This part of it is brand new. Like,
oh, nice.
Just in the past less than 6 months, I have made this shift because I'm like, it's time to do something different. Like it wasn't working. And it's so interesting. I worked with a business coach that has been a friend for a while, and she's seen my own personal transformation. And there was a moment that I just like had this huge realization of, the reason I wasn't having the success that I was looking for is because I wasn't doing the thing that I'm really put on this earth to do. Like, I know without a doubt, like, this is my thing. Like, this is what I was made for. This is what I was put on the earth for, is to stand in my own confidence and give other people the permission to do the same.
That's really cool. I mean, you've hit it when it feels like, oh, this is my, oh man. Now, what did that change in your marketing and your messaging? Like, that must've been a whole radical shift then. Your program changed, you changed,
yes,
everything.
Everything changed, everything. And I was really fortunate to work with my coach. She had an intensive program that was 8 weeks where I really dug into, and it was interesting because I was still trying to make my ideal client the same person that it was before, and it just wasn't working. And I was like, what is this shift? And she helped me have this realization that I was trying to go after the wrong people still. So I changed up all my marketing. I changed up who I'm talking to, how I'm talking to them, what I'm talking to them about. It all shifted, but it's so in alignment that it didn't feel scary. It felt good.
That's really cool. Cause that could be, I mean, for most businesses, all right, you're going to change everything. Like, oh no, that just sounds like a whole lot of work and stress and uncertainty. Well, wait a minute. I had people that were buying, So that's, and how has that shift gone? I mean, it feels good in you. Business wise, has it been so far? I mean, that's 6 months is not a whole lot of time, but are you feeling pretty optimistic with it?
I am. And you know what? This is my philosophy on it, is that no matter if I have clients like immediately purchasing my program or not, because this is a new shift within me, like I know that it's coming. I know that it's happening. Like I don't have a doubt about that. And I'm not worried about like the right people finding me, because I know they will. Like I know that as I continue to show up, like they're already on their way to me, and I'm not worried about that. So like maybe I haven't hit the exact success number that I was looking for originally, but that to me was an old masculine energy thing of like, I have to hit the thing, because that was more tied to force instead of the flow of allowing and being receptive to the right people who are already on their way to me, and I'm attracting them now. And the more that I show up this way, the more that I allow myself to be that beacon of light, of hope for women, the more that it's going to come.
That's really cool. So this kind of combines with the next set of questions. I'm going to ask a bunch of questions in one. You tackle it. You untangle the knot.
Perfect.
I want to know, like, what role time outside plays for you, and also, what does your daily life look like now, especially having made this shift in your business? Oh, that's just 2 questions, but
not too big. That's pretty easy. It's really interesting. My whole journey that I went on to discover myself again, outside time played a big part in it. I had this hill. I'm going to take a little sidestep here. While I was going through this journey, I had a friendship that was very, very deep, very near and dear to me, that ended, that kind of blew up in a way. And it caused me to really take a very, very deeper look on myself. Like, how was I showing up that I would attract something like that in my life? What did I do or did not do to be able to allow that relationship to stay with me through this growth? And there's a hill here, because Indiana's not hilly. It's not super like woodsy. We have woods, but we don't have like mountains, right? So there's a hill. It's actually like a man-made sledding hill, but I would go and meditate on this hill often. And just for me, being outside is how I connect more with my feminine energy so much. Like, even if I'm just taking the dog on a WALK, because he can sit right here. I'm like, I will not say that word. If you have a dog, you know exactly what I mean.
4, it would have been mayhem. Yeah. Thank you.
Exactly. If I go and I do that, then like just the connectedness that I can feel of being able to slow myself down, to get out of the hustle, to get out of the like, do the next thing and just take some slow time has been huge for me. And as far as like what my daily life looks like, so it's interesting the way things happen, but there's so many personal development gurus, so many books, so many different like schools of thought on like morning routines. And like one says you need to wake up at 5 a.m. and do these 5 things. The other one says you need to high five yourself in the mirror. The other one says you need to do like an hour meditation. It's like, there's so much noise. And finally I was like, I can't do all these things. Like, what works for me? So I developed something that is actually in my program that I teach my clients called the Radiant Ritual. And it's all about connecting with yourself, building evidence, which in my gratitude journal practice, I use it as building evidence, because I believe that when you look for the evidence of where you are, where you want to be, or where you already have confident moments, where you can draw on the kind of person you want to be, and you already have those character traits and you're looking at it, that just continues to build evidence. That's something that I learned a long time ago in certifications that I've done. So connecting to yourself, building that evidence, and then allowing yourself to have intuitive feminine movement. And what I mean by that is like, maybe my body feels a little tighter, and so I need to do some yoga poses. Maybe I need to like sway my hips and like dance a little bit, like just inviting in more connection, more flow, more openness. And I find that as I've done that, as I've taken the time to connect with myself and build this evidence, have the movement, I go about my day totally differently, in a more relaxed manner. I'm not so like up in a tizzy. And I do it throughout the day too. Like, it's not just a morning routine thing for me. Like, before I got on this call, like, I was dancing. I have a playlist I've created that I share with my clients. I was dancing to the music that makes me feel alive. I was connecting to myself. And when I connect to myself, like, I put my hands on my vessel and like, I feel my aliveness and I breathe. And so there's not a lot of rules around it. It's like, do what works for you. And if it doesn't work, like, find something else that works, which to me was the most like freeing thing of all, because I didn't have to play by someone else's rules. I'm playing by what makes me win.
The thing that hit me just as you were saying that is feminine energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, masculine energy is, here's the plan. We're taking that hill. Let's go, 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 go. Come on, lads. Let's, where the feminine, it does feel a little bit just looser, loosey goosey a little, but in a way that works. That's really, really cool. Now you mentioned slow energy. No, slow time.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? The reason I'm asking is I know I'm 56. I had about, probably turning 50. I realized, oh my gosh, everybody says time goes faster the older you get, all this kind of thing. My kids are, 27 and 24. It's like, I get it. And I would tell them, like, it moves faster and it speeds up as you go. Mm-hmm. I was almost starting to have like existential angst over the rapidity of, wasn't it just Thursday 2 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Being outside, I've found it slows down dramatically. It's like, there are very few things vying for your attention. If you're outside and committed to being outside and being outside, it slows way down. And it's like, have you found that? And how do you have ways that you kind of facilitate that happening?
Yeah, I found kind of the same thing. When I go outside, it's like, when you can turn your devices off, when you turn off the noise, like, we live in an era where everything wants your attention, Facebook, Instagram, advertising, emails. Like, if you don't intentionally turn those things off, you can quite literally get sucked in a never ending cycle. Like, you can never get out if you don't choose. So for me, going outside, I'm able to leave those distractions and kind of quiet myself and just watch. More often than not, when I'm going on those WALKs, I like to keep I have my phone on me because I'm a mom, and just for emergencies, if my kids, need me from school or whatever. But a lot of the time, like, that's when I like to talk to God, talk to myself. What am I noticing outside? Like, connecting to my surroundings instead of keeping my mind busy. Sometimes I do listen to podcasts or books or audios or something while I'm outside too, whatever is working for me at the time. But I do find that when you get out of the walls that you're in, whether that's your home, work, running errands, whatever, and you just take it only takes a moment. Like, you don't have to. I think that's the biggest misconception that I misunderstood when I started doing this work, is that I thought that I needed to spend like an hour every day outside, that I needed to do, like, have this prescribed way of doing it. But it's really like, no, just go stand in the grass barefoot and feel connected for a moment, and then come back and do the next thing instead of rushing from thing to thing.
Oh, I like that. So many entrepreneurs that I know that I've talked with there's almost, and for me, this was definitely the case, where it was kind of like, well, outside time, that's for someday after and then it could be fill in the blank, but it's always a moving goalpost, right? Mm-hmm. And it felt more like outside time was kind of frivolous. Like, well, it's not producing money, I'm not doing it. It's just purely me sitting there. I'm not accomplishing anything, But to see that, no, actually, like, I harp on this all the time. I'm like, you're going to get your best ideas outside, like, it should be a priority. Not waiting until after. It's like, it will help you to get to whatever that thing is that you're trying to do, probably, or it might even take you a whole other direction, just having that quiet time. I love that you're saying, basically, it's almost kind of like, so a lot of people, it could feel like, well, I have to impose this new practice, this heavy thing, another big item on but it's really just a matter of opting, oh, no, I'm going to, it's fluid. And I think they're back again to the feminine.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that, man. All right. So if you could give some advice to the listeners, the viewers, the readers, what would you say?
I would say to just start finding like what brings you joy, what makes you feel happy, what makes you feel connected. And it's not about like what you said, it's not about having this like heavy practice of I have to do these 10 things every single week or every single day. Like just find one. Like just start somewhere. Start from where you are. That's the best way. You know, I use this analogy all the time with my clients of if you have a GPS and you know your destination, you know you want to get to where you want to go, but you're lying about where you are, you're putting in a different zip code.
Ooh.
Then that GPS, how successful is it going to get you to where you've never been before? Like you're screwed. You're never going to get there. So just starting where you are, saying, you know what, up until now, and language is a huge thing for me. I don't know if you pay attention to how I've been talking. I don't talk like other people talk. And I use things like up until now, and I tell my clients this too. So we're not going to hold on to the past or I've always done this. Like, no, we don't do that. Up until now, I've made some decisions that didn't serve me all the way. And now I can make some different ones. And it can be as simple as going outside in between client calls or in between emails that I'm writing or using a timer. I'm big on timers of like not getting sucked in. You know, part of my process is going through networking on Facebook. That's how I found you. And like using a timer for that so I don't get sucked in, and then taking a break to either like reconnect with myself, do some movement, go outside, something, because there is that time in your day. The lie that you can't have that is simply a lie. Like you've been conditioned, or people have been conditioned over time to think that like in order to be successful, I have to push all the time. And it's not true. Just like what you said, your best ideas come outside. Like when you can allow yourself to connect to yourself, to connect to the earth, to creativity, to allow yourself to just be and turn everything else off. And it's very uncomfortable. I will say this too. Like my other piece of advice is like, stick with it because you're likely not used to it. It's gonna feel strange. Anytime you take a step out of your comfort zone, it's gonna feel weird until you start doing it more. So give yourself a half a chance. I talk about that a lot too. Like, it's not that you have to go change absolutely everything about your being. You don't need to go, you know, wear dresses nonstop and bake all these things and be like 1950s housewife. That's not what it's about. It's like, where can I shift the little things, give myself half a chance to feel better about how I'm going through my day.
I like that. And I'll vouch. I mean, it's very uncomfortable making anything like, and I've told my story many places, but I'll say it again here. You know, I started a writing business in 2005. I was married before. I was basically just, if we and the kids were going to eat, it was because I was writing. And, but it was a lot at that time. And I got to the point where outside was just someplace I went to go to get to the car, like to run an errand or whatever. It was not, you know, if somebody had said, you want to go outside, it'd be why, you know, when I read Trevor Blake's book, 3 Simple Steps. So he's built all these 9-figure businesses. He's 50, it might be 60 now. And he says in his book, he's like, I probably work about 3 or 4 hours a day, but most of that I'm out walking my dogs or sitting under a tree. And I was like, what? And he's like, spend some time outside. All right, fine, I'm game. So sitting out, I don't wanna, but I will. You know, like I'm like, this is boring. It's hot. There's bugs. Ugh, you know.
Yeah.
But I was, I you know, give yourself half a chance, right? So tried that, and I'm like, all right, while I'm out here, I could be productive. I'm going to go deadhead some roses. After I'm doing that, I'm like, wonder if I could cook these. Like, could this become jelly? Could this be, you know, and just that curiosity, allowing my brain to get curious about what this was. Before I knew it, like I was, you know, hubby and I go out, we would spend, I mean, now our life is completely different. We're outside a lot, but we would go and have, you know, tea on the front porch first thing before I'm online or anything. And it was just, it started seeping in, and I allowed that. And all of a sudden it became kind of like craving that time outside, like a kid at recess, like waiting, like, okay, can I go? Can I go? Can I go? But there was an adjustment. You know, it's very easy to feel very bored, overwhelmed, kind of angsty, when you've shifted into something that is good and will benefit you, but it can be a hard adjustment to shift into that. So that's, I love what you said as far as, giving yourself half a chance and trying it and not imposing if somebody had told me you're going to spend 4 hours a day outside now, no. Now, I mean, you shift into it and it's wonderful, but
yeah,
there's that shift. So that's wonderful. And you're able to support your clients in making these, what seems like a crazy shift for them. I'm sure it's unsafe. It feels, what's going to happen if I'm not driving? What will happen? But that's really cool, man. I love that. How is your life like overall? Like, how do you feel now? Like, you've made all these major changes. It feels like you're doing the thing that, you were put here to do. What does that boil down to for you?
The biggest word that comes up for me when you ask that is I'm so much more relaxed. I'm so much more just softer. Like, I have a friend who's known me for, almost 7 years, and he hadn't seen me for probably 2.5 in person. And I was interviewed on his podcast and we did it on Zoom, and he saw my face and he's like, you look softer. Like, even my face has changed. Like, I have changed into a softer person. And, I'm not perfect. I still screw up. I resort to old patterns sometimes. But I know I can come back because I have this baseline of knowing where I want to be, like my middle section of like, this is where we feel good. Anytime I get a little bit out of alignment, I'm able to come back and I'm able to just reset. And giving myself that flexibility is huge, because I did not used to do that. I used to be so rigid and uptight, and it's just, so many people don't believe that you can be fluid and still produce or still make money and still be successful. And you absolutely can. Like, we don't have to be always producing. So I love what you're up to. I love the message. I love your story because it's very relatable. Thinking like, holding on to like a vice grip. That's another thing. Like, the masculine energy is very just like go, go, go. I like to explain it, and this may be helpful for people too. I know you explained it like going up the hill or like, the straight line versus like a swirl. I also like to think of it as like the masculine energy is a boat on the ocean. It has a purpose, it has a direction, it knows where it's going, and it has to get certain tasks completed so that it gets to where it's going. And the feminine energy is the ocean. It's fluid. It's not trying to go anywhere. It just is. It just exists. And that feminine energy will take the boat to where it needs to go. And it also at any time has the power to crush that boat. Like, feminine energy is far more powerful than masculine, and we need them both. They both have a part to play.
Fascinating. I love that analogy. I'm going to have fun playing with that in my mind.
You're welcome.
No, thank you. Any books you'd recommend for people?
Oh my goodness. The lists of books are huge. I think if you're just barely starting out, which this is funny too. So this is not a new concept to me, the whole masculine, feminine energy. I heard it back, like what I said, that event that I first went to 6.5 years ago. I heard about it there a little bit, and I started reading this book. It's called It's a Guy Thing by, oh my goodness, now I forget the author. Is it David Data? No. I'm gonna have to look at that. Anyway, I'll get you the author. I started reading it, and I was at a point in my life where that book pissed me off. I was so mad because here this book is telling me like all these things about like masculine energy and feminine energy and how like, well, men do these things. And I was really, really mad. I was very, very bothered, and I had to put the book down, and it took me a couple years. And then I started reading it again with a book club with some really powerful women in my life. And we went through it together, and I just had a huge shift in me. I was able to see it differently and not allow myself to be so triggered, because I allowed that. That was all me. So that's a really good starting place. And don't be surprised if it pisses you off, because you're having this realization that like, ah, shit, I've been showing up in my masculine energy and I didn't want to be wrong. I was really tied to being right back then. And so here this book was telling me I'm wrong. That's one. Another one that has been really, really good for me. And it's interesting because it's like all understanding men, like all the books that I love very, very like the most are all understanding men so that you can understand women and the feminine energy. And like, it's showing you what you don't need to be. Another one is it's called The Keys to the Kingdom by Alison Armstrong. And that one, it just blew my mind. It's very, very, very easy read. It's a story format, but has so many good teachings. It helped me really understand like the way that I had been in the past showing up with my husband, of cutting him down, of not giving him space to be in his masculine, like all those things. And because I was receptive, like that was a fun read for me. It wouldn't have been, I wouldn't have ever taken a look at it before. Yeah. So there's so many resources out there. Yeah.
That's great. That's really good. Yeah, I'll include those in the article then for sure. Good. And where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook. I have a free community that I run for anybody that wants to learn more about feminine energy, how to step into that, how to really start showing up with more confidence, more radiance, because like I said earlier, everybody has it. I can give you the link to my Facebook community and then people can join it there, and they can also just find me. My personal profile is my business page. I do have an official business page, but I don't really do anything with it. So like, find my profile, friend me, like let's connect, because I believe like connections are the most important thing in this world.
It really does make a big difference, doesn't it?
Yes.
That I think is also a feminine energy thing, right? Like,
oh yes,
is that drive to connect, and
yes,
that's really, this is so cool. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm delighted. I hope that if you ever need to do a retreat, come on over to Tennessee. We'll practically be neighbors.
Absolutely.
We'll build a great place that you can host here. But this has been really, really powerful. I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun.